Ah, your face. You're practically hollow. What? Restoring your humanity? Well, there are a few ways to go about it. Collect it bit by bit from corpses. Or you can butter up a cleric and get yourself summoned. And the quickest way, although I'd never do it, is to kill a healthy undead and pillage its humanity. Coveting thy neighbor is only human, after all. But who knows? Going hollow could solve quite a bit.
Consumable items are a staple of the From Software Souls series. Dark Souls 1's humanity serves as the most coveted and important consumable in the series from both a gameplay and lore perspective. While following games would carry out this mechanic, none held the importance of humanity as in high regard as Dark Souls 1. Humanity is the Swiss Army knife of all consumables or reiterations in following titles. No titles since have been able to create a consumable as versatile or valuable that functions as the heart, or dare I say soul, of the game. This is why Dark Souls 1 still matters. Immediately upon a playthrough, humanity is established as an essential item for both gameplay and lore. We gain our first humanity from beating the Asylum Demon. It's indicated by the counter in the top left of the screen, further highlighting its importance to the gameplay. Humanity is obtained from beating most bosses, found on corpses, and can also be farmed from certain enemies, such as the rats. Humanity essentially reverts the player from undead to human form. Their appearance changes from a desiccated, withered corpse to a normal human. Besides this cosmetic change, humanity also plays a vital role in multiplayer and summoning to allow for co-op or competitive play. Humanity also dictates the item discovery rate as well. The more humanity a player has, the more likely they will receive item drops from enemies. Humanity also plays a role for offerings in both the Chaos Servant and Dark Wraith Covenants. Humanity can be offered to bonfires to further kindle them, allowing the player to further increase the amount of Estus flasks they can hold at that particular bonfire. The Rite of Kindling also enhances this effect as well. Lastly, humanity can be consumed as a healing item, bringing the player to full health no matter their HP level, whereas the Estus flask restores player health in increments. No other consumable item has had this much utility from a gameplay perspective. Why I find this ideal is that it simplifies the gameplay experience and multiplayer participation. It being used as a high-risk, high-reward healing system due to its long animation is also a nice touch, allowing highly skilled players to use its utility in boss fights or difficult encounters. In the lore, humanity is a fragment of the original Dark Soul within the First Flame discovered by the Furtive Pygmy. Humanity resides within each human from birth and essentially functions as the element or essence that separates humans from other living beings such as animals, giants, and even the gods. The nature and understanding of humanity and what the Dark Soul actually does or is has changed throughout the titles. The item description from DS1's Humanity states, "This black sprite is called humanity, but little is known about its true nature. If the soul is the source of all life, then what distinguishes the humanity we hold within ourselves?" Even the item description serves to leave the nature of humanity obscure. The same can be said for its gameplay function, as there are no demonstrations or tutorial messages that hint at what humanity is or does in terms of gameplay. It's not only until perusing through the bonfire menu the player can get a sense of what humanity is for, or through talking to the Crestfallen Knight to get some ideas on where to find it. His dialogue indicates it's valuable and worth looking for, even going so far as to suggest pillaging it from other fellow undead. In Demon Souls, the Stone of Ephemeral Eyes takes on a similar role. The Stone of Ephemeral Eyes can be consumed in order to revert to human form from soul form. This restores the player's full use of the health bar instead of it being halved. It will also heal the player's HP and MP as well. However, the stone can only be used once unless the player reverts back to soul form again. This is its only function in the game. In Dark Souls 2, humanity is replaced by the human effigy. The human effigy functions similar to humanity in Dark Souls 1, where it restores the player to human form from an undead form and restoring them to full health. However, it cannot be used as a repeat healing item after being consumed once. The human effigy also aids in multiplayer, allowing the player to interact with summon signs and stave off invasions for a time. Outside of these functions, human effigies are only used to interact with Dark Giver Grandal in order to enter the Dark Lurker boss fight process. While the human effigy does remove the lowered health cap when undead, this same effect can be achieved through the Ring of Life Protection and Ring of Soul Protection. I would argue that human effigies are second in terms of importance and multi-use behind Dark Souls 1's humanity. In Dark Souls 3, hollowing became an optional mechanic in favor of the Ember system. Instead of being an undead, the player assumes the role as an amalgamation of unkindled ash. The Ember has a similar function by increasing the player's max health by 30% and allowing for multiplayer participation and summon interaction. This is the only function for Ember, lessening its importance in my view when compared to the humanity from Dark Souls 1. In Elden Ring, the function would change drastically in the form of the Rune Arc. The Rune Arc allows the player to use the function of whatever great rune they have equipped from the slain demigods. Each rune has a different characteristic, such as increasing player health, raising player attributes, attacks recovering HP, and more. While this offers a wide range of what the Rune Arcs can do, I personally find that there are only a few that are actually useful. A big miss of this system was that the runes have to be collected again on consecutive playthroughs on the same character. Unlocking these abilities can be tedious since the Tarnished has to beat the bosses and travel to the Divine Towers again. Using Rune Arcs without the Great Rune equipped results in a small increase in max HP. The Rune Arcs offer no other function for multiplayer either. I personally find this to be the weakest iteration of this system due to its somewhat inconvenient startup and lack of external functions. Besides the utility of the humanity from Dark Souls 1, it also offers a cool, unique take on the player's view of themselves through the hollowing system. Humanity is used to remove the sickly look from the player to a more human appearance. What this demonstrates to the player is that they themselves are not too far off from the undead they are fighting. Without that humanity, they're just a slightly more functioning hollow wandering Lordran. By making the player look ugly, it highlights the unforgiving nature of the world and reinforces their lack of importance within that world. They are no god or savior, rather just a naked beef jerky man. Yet said beef jerky man can defy those odds, enslave the gods, and hold the fate of the next cycle in their hands. Ultimately, it shows the player they are nothing, yet can do anything. Dark Souls 2 was the only game following that would alter the appearance of the character as a main gameplay function. Similarly, the player takes on a zombie-like appearance with a more green hue to their skin tone with whitened eyes. Interestingly, the character will get progressively more rancid as their hollowing progresses with consecutive deaths without using a human effigy. Dark Souls 3 would bring back the hollowing mechanic and appearance as an optional route for one of the game's endings. By obtaining 5 dark sigils through death, the player will receive an extra 5 levels plus summons in select boss fights that ultimately result in a different ending. However, this is an optional route that is not tied to the typical player experience. While the hollowing appearance does play homage to the original's visual aesthetic, I find that it does not evoke the same feelings of worthlessness as DS1 does. An interesting interview quote from Miyazaki highlights this notion further. Quote, "This was continuously brought up since the first Dark Souls. Players spent their times to customize the character, but were sad when their character stayed in hollow form for most of the time. That's why DS3 doesn't have hollow form after death. And the reason for our main character being called Unkindled and Ashen One is because he or she is a special being that appeared during the end of the Age of Fire. However, there is a way to become hollowed, and we are giving a special meaning to it. There might be a player who says, 'At last, I'm hollowed.' And that would be fulfilling in my long-cherished wish." This statement could be highlighting his intentional wish for the player experience in subsequent games. He could be asserting that being, quote, "ugly" was part of the ideal intended experience for the player. This was a decision due to players wanting to make their characters beautiful throughout the playthrough. Although, let's be honest, most will just end up covering their face with a helmet anyways. Being powerless and insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and showing that through hollowing adds to the visual storytelling. Humanity is the Swiss Army knife of consumables. It can be and do just about anything where other items don't even come close. While this argument isn't meant to negatively portray the other games, this is more of my expression of what I prefer personally. By the way, could you hand it over, that thing, your humanity? Thanks for watching. What is your favorite consumable in the Souls series and why? Is there a particular item you just can't live without to deal with those certain encounters or boss fights? If I had to pick a second, I would say nothing beats good old fire bombs. It's perfect for taking out that pesky iron boar and cheesing the Capra demon. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you like my thoughts on the Souls series and other game titles from time to time, consider subscribing to the channel. As always, I appreciate your interest and insights. You all have such awesome theories and hilarious comments, so please keep them coming. Thanks again, and I will see you Hollows in the next one. Take care.
Goodbye then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.